everybody. Happy Wednesday. This is Direct Line, and I'm here with my featured guest co-host, Jimmy J. And
I'm a
tonight's special
regular.
guest, Chris. How are you doing?
Good. How are you today? Thank you for having me.
Good. Yeah, we're so excited to have you on the show. I know Jimmy has a lot of questions that he's written down already, but we'll start off with something easy.
Everybody.
So
Happy
you won your
Wednesday.
primary, you're running
This
for
is
Congress. What
Direct
can you tell
Line,
us about your
and I'm
campaign?
here
How's it
with my
going? What are you looking
featured guest
forward to? What are your
co-host, Jimmy
challenges?
J.
Yeah, it's going pretty
And
well.
tonight's
I've
special
enjoyed every
guest,
minute of it since early December was when I
Chris?
filed. In January, I've been hitting the ground running, and I think it's really interesting this cycle with coronavirus and everyone being at home. So I had a great plan of doing door-to-door campaign and getting on the ground, hosting events and having events, but unfortunately we couldn't do that. But tried taking advantage as much as possible that we could with social media, pushing out videos and content. I'm a web developer, a designer too, so I was able to save some funding by being able to do and building all that all myself. Even I had a little why I run video that I produced and created, and show you how fiscally conservative I am. That cost me nothing, so I'll take that. But no, it was great. The other candidates that I ran against in the primary, 4 other great patriots, all of them wanted to see what was best for our country. And I think seeing even on Steny Hoyer's side, Democrat side, how many candidates went to run against him, I think is a testament that there is a dire need for change for Maryland District 5 from both sides of the aisle. And so a lot of the people that I've been talking to and hearing that are Republicans, Democrats, Independents, the common theme that everybody's saying is that Steny Hoyer does not represent the people. He doesn't listen to anybody. Whenever anybody goes to him for inquiries and concerns, they get a pre-canned message or the response that has nothing to do with their concerns. And that is a big problem to me, how government should run. So like I said, the campaign's been going great. Luckily pulled out with a big field, and I've been working very well with the other candidates that I ran against. Lee Havis has been great, Doug Sayers, we've all been working together to continue moving forward and look at the big prize, which is doing something that hasn't been done in nearly 40 years, and that's on Steny Hoyer. But it's going very well.
That's great. Yeah, I know we were talking before the show about how Steny Hoyer has been in office and Steve Johnson has been president. And, we're seeing a lot of it. I mean, they're saying it on the left a lot too, but that, it's time to transition a lot of these roles to a younger person, to new generations who can bring in fresh ideas. So I think that's definitely what it seems like you've been hearing.
So, Chris, thanks for coming on the show. I mean, I won't hit you with anything hard right now. Don't worry. But so tell me, you're relatively young and Steny's relatively old, 81 to be exact. What made you make that jump or just wake up one day and say, I think I am going to run for Congressional District 5. We need a change, and I'm that change. What was the thought process behind it? Did you talk to your wife? What were you thinking when you first announced you were going to run, or when you were thinking about it?
I'll try my best to limit story time, but a good friend of mine when I was in high school, Kent Wilson, so if he was watching, thank you. He's been heavily into politics. He got me involved at a very young age, paying attention to policies and the news and understanding what was going on, and that carried with me. And then working on Capitol Hill as a police officer, I was able to see firsthand how dysfunctional Congress really was. So it was really an eye-opener for me, paying attention to government and paying attention to current events, to actually be there firsthand. It was eye-opening to me. I got to learn very quickly how much money is wasted on Capitol Hill. And you really got to see the real power of who really controls things behind the wall in the Capitol. And it kind of got that little fire inside. Right, we need a change. We need to get back to a representative government, one that's for the people, and somebody there to protect our rights and liberties. So time moved on, and I got involved with local communities. And I'm big into the hockey community in the state of Maryland. I was president for the league for a few years, and while doing that, I was trying to lobby to get ice hockey recognized as a varsity sport within the state of Maryland. So I put out an email to some of the local officials, and Delegate Mark Fisher came out. And he came to the meeting, and afterwards, he saw how I ran the meeting. Of course, it's sports, it's hockey. But he said, you did very well. Like, you should get into politics. So it was that little bug in my ears, like, oh, maybe. And so thank you, Mark. So again, later on, time's gone by, just getting involved community. And I was going to run in 2018, and request with my wife, we have kids too, and with them getting involved, it just wasn't the right time. And then just seeing everything that was going on, how the House flipped in 2018, and seeing how the country was going, it's like, you know what? Now's the time. Now's a great time to run, throw my hat in the ring, get off the sidelines and get in the game.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, so tell me, let's say you do win and you unseat Steny Hoyer. They're planning on going on vacation soon, and they haven't even voted on one of the most important pieces of legislation. And your possibly your colleague, if he wins in District 2, Senator Salings, I hit him with this question as well. Tell me how you feel, or how does it make you feel that all these congressional leaders are in office right now, and they haven't passed a bill to move any or give any relief to people that need it right now with unemployment or small business relief, and they haven't passed another package that could make or break businesses, and most likely it's going to break them since they have no money coming in and they won't be able to vote on it until mid-September when they come back if they don't negotiate a deal now. How does it make you feel?
The president has had to step in.
Right, Jackie, but that's going to be challenged in the court. So let's just technically let's leave that out and let Chris answer this question.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and I'm glad you asked that, because it's very frustrating, because we, the people, hired them to do the job for us, to govern. And you see this whole year in general, and I know from my experience working there, they're not on the Hill legislating and governing that often. They're off more than, I know a lot of the times, like right now, they're supposed to be doing district work, so they're supposed to be working with constituents, but they have a lot of huge bills, legislation. We have a lot of issues in this country right now that they keep kicking the can down the road, and it's irresponsible. That's not how government should run. And again, too, when they do come back, if they come back, they have a budget deadline that's due by the end of September. So that's going to give them less than 2 weeks to come up with a budget, or else we're going to have a government lockdown too. So again, seeing this when I worked there, they would always push those last second. When they do that, that's when you get everybody adding all these pork bills and pork legislation into the bills, and then you have an inflated bill, and money has been misappropriated, misallocated throughout. But what frustrates me even the most is that, like you said, Jimmy, is that we have a lot of people, a lot of small business owners, a lot of people who are still unemployed right now. You have a lot of businesses that are barely breaking even right now. And I spoke with a business owner in La Plata, and they have a couple restaurants that they franchised. They already had to shut down the one. And with the 50% capacity indoors, they're just breaking even. Anything else that's going to happen is going to shut them down. It's going to be more people on unemployment, and they're hurting right now. I was just talking with somebody within the school district, and the conversations down here in Southern Maryland with everybody going on virtual is, well, with the school buildings being closed, they now have to go through and say, you know what, we may have to furlough some of the janitors and the custodians and the bus drivers and the secretaries. That is more people without work, more people suffering. And meanwhile, they're still bringing in their hefty salary and still toting around on taxpayer dime. And I think that is absolutely wrong. And if I was in office, I'd be working day and night to make sure that we can try and fix these problems and find solutions to these issues and help the people.
Let's pivot to education real quick. Dr. Salmon, there was an article in the Baltimore Sun. Dr. Karen Salmon, who was my superintendent when I went to high school, Talbot County, and it was reported that she did an increased pay raise of $250,000. Would you call that government fat? And should something like that be cut? And you referenced where a lot of these janitors and a lot of other people that depend on the money and the schools being open will be cut from their jobs. But example, Dr. Salmon, who works in the governor's administration, an increase of $250,000 is outrageous. Thoughts?
Again, that's one of those things with government that I think is, again, that her salary is being paid by taxpayers. And to me, good leadership is leading from the front and leading by example. We're not on different tiers when it comes to society, when it comes to our status. We're all equal. And when we're looking for that equality, especially when you're in that position, you should not be taking in a $40,000 bonus to your salary, while meanwhile you're having to make cuts in your decisions are going to lead to cuts and more people being laid off and unemployed.
Completely agree. Completely agree. Jackie, do you have a question? I'm sorry. I mean,
no, you're fine.
I'm gonna bring my co-host back in.
I mean, you're talking about equality. Obviously, something that's very big in the news and has been for a number of months has been this whole idea of racial justice and the Black Lives Matter movement. You're a former police officer, and you know, we're definitely seeing a lot of people on the left pushing back and wanting to defund the police. And so, what's your take on all that? What do you think we should be doing to help with you know, the perceived idea of racial justice, but also supporting our boys in blue?
Yeah, well, when it comes to racial justice, I mean, there are injustices that we're having. So social justices, they do exist. And our Bill of Rights, you know, they're intended to give every individual, regardless of identity, the opportunity to prosper. And we need to make sure that we have those liberties, that they're being protected without taking the rights and freedoms away from everybody. So first and foremost, I'm a big liberty-driven person and looking for that for everybody. So we do need to make sure we have the equality of opportunity for everybody, regardless. As for the defunding the police situation, again, my former time as being a police officer in Capitol Hill, police officers right now, they don't need to be defunded at all. You do see the places where they are defunding the police and crime is skyrocketing. And then not only on top of that, you see, for example, I believe it was in Minneapolis where they voted to not disband, but they try to work to get rid of the police altogether. Meanwhile, they have, I believe it's 3 of their city council members hired private protection. So when you take away the police from your citizens to serve and protect, and then you're taking that away from the citizens who actually need it, meanwhile protecting yourselves, that's such a bad double standard. And now you're leaving it up to the people to defend themselves, and with their laws that they have, they're not able to. So again, it's knee-jerk reactions. It's irresponsible government. And again, with myself as law enforcement, I went to the academy, which is incredible training that we had. We did a lot of defensive tactics. We did a lot of scenario-based training. We did a lot of sim round training too. And they had hired actors there to kind of play out the role to get all the different nuances and ambiance to work around you, to really build up those stress levels, to teach you how to control yourself, to stay calm, to handle situations even when it's very high stressful. You don't know what police officers are going to go through day in, day out. You don't even know if we're going to be able to go home day in, day out with certain situations. So it's that continual training that I think needs to take place within law enforcement and not just within the academy. They need to incorporate more training throughout to make sure that officers are staying on top of the grind and making sure that they're able to stay calm in those situations and not make knee-jerk and abortions like we did see in Minneapolis with George Floyd. And again, a lot of that comes down to continual training, psychological evaluation too, to make sure that everybody's staying on top of it. But again, to do that, it's going to take more funding because you have to have officers come off the streets to replenish those who are taking training. And that's the tough thing now too, with everybody's budget and the coronavirus situation with states budgets too. Where's the money going to come from? So, but it's not going to help anybody by defending the police. The police are an integral part of the society, and we need to make sure that that they're intact and making sure that the training is also in place to make sure that we don't have situations like we've had seen in the past.
Yeah, and in a similar vein, obviously the big news this week was Joe Biden announcing Kamala Harris as his running mate. And obviously, at least in my mind, it seemed like the strategic pick there was that, well, we can use her as somebody who served in a law enforcement capacity to really bring more police back over to our side. But she's made it actually that she's standing with the Black Lives Matter movement and the idea of defunding the police. Do you think that that's smart on her behalf? Do you think that, there's something more that she could be doing to support police?
Well, not Jackie. Before Chris answers that question, I just want to jump in for a second. That's not necessarily true. The candidate Biden or Vice President Biden has already said that his platform would be not to defund the police at all. So I want to make sure we're making sure our viewers are accurate on that information. And Senator Kamala Harris did say that in the primary, but has agreed that she would not defund the police as well, based on interviews and stuff like that in general. Just want to make sure we're on the right track. Go ahead, Chris.
We're on the right track, yes. But I think if we're going off of her original statements, which I would say are probably the ones that she's still sticking to, even though she has to pretty much yes ma'am whatever Joe Biden says now.
That is fair. That is fair.
And I do recall reading earlier today that I believe there are, I can't speak for the whole organization, but there has been posts on social media where members or people who associate themselves with the Black Lives Matter organization are actually upset with Kamala Harris being the vice president because of her track history as being the attorney in California, with her actually incriminating people within the Black community. And then also you have, I thought about this too. When you made the pick for Kamala Harris, which to me, when you take a look at the list that he had, I do think it was a wise point for them to pick her. However, I think that her background, her experiences, and her treatment of the citizens of California was exposed by Tulsi Gabbard in the debates, where it's even like, wow, I wonder if maybe President Trump would say, if they do have a vice president debate, say, you know what, let's tag in Tulsi back in real quick. I think that'd be pretty interesting to hear that again. But you take a look at her record. You also take a look at her stances when it comes to gun control. She also said it'd be great to have mandated buybacks of weapons for everybody. And then you also see with her handling of the Justice Judge Kavanaugh trial, how she has said that he needs to remove himself from that seat based on the accusations. And it's like, what about due process? We have to have due process. Let him go through the trial. Let him go through the important situation to go through. But she was trying to get him to recuse himself from being nominated from the get-go based on accusations. And meanwhile, let us forget, he did say that she believed Joe Biden's accusers for the I can't recall if it was rape or molestation, but the one lady, I can't remember her name. So again, like you said, Jackie, too, there's a flip-flopping and wishy-washy with her stances as well. But again, I think the biggest thing that goes against her is when you take a look at her track record as a prosecutor in California and the cases that she worked on, and her not even allowing DNA evidence that could have had many people who were convicted and put in jail for many years and could have set them free. She rejected DNA evidence time and time again. And again, when you have somebody who's not being due diligent when it comes to the rule of law and order, that bothers me when they're able to have that kind of power.
Yeah, I definitely think that this choice may be hurting Joe Biden's campaign rather than helping his campaign. But staying along the lines of law enforcement and everything like that, you're really a fan of government accountability. So do you want to speak a little bit more to that? I know you went into a little bit with what's going on with trying to pass relief bills and everything like that.
Yeah. Well, government accountability. Like I said, from my experience working up there, I got to see a lot of things behind the doors of what happened. I even saw one member of Congress, they had certain offices within the Capitol building, and they just had in one of their offices a nice, thick, lush white carpet that was installed in their room. And I went back to work a couple of days later, and the architect of the Capitol, they had that nice rug that they just put down in the room, rolled up and in the dumpster. And I said, "You guys installed that?" They said, "Yeah, well, the senator, she didn't like it, so." I said, "You're tossing it out?" He said, "Yeah, it's in the trash." I'm sitting there going, again, that's small, but that's taxpayer money. That's wasted money. And, that's a small one, but trust me, a lot more goes on like that in Capitol Hill. But again, there's a lot of wasteful spending going on. Right now, when I started this campaign, we're at $23 trillion in debt. Now we're at 26, probably $28 trillion in debt very soon, based on if the House and Senate are coming to agreement with this fifth stimulus package. But we need accountability. We need a lot of people that are in Congress to be responsible for their actions and inactions. And again, fiscal responsibility, we need that too. We need a balanced budget because ultimately we can't just continuously pump money out of the Federal Reserve and print money out of nowhere and patch up the economy. Eventually that the inflation's going to kick in. The middle class and lower class are going to suffer so much more from that because of lack of assets that they have as well. And we talked a little earlier too about the state superintendent for education getting increased too. And you look on Capitol Hill with the amount of entitlements they have. You also take a look at how much money that they make as well. And if you recall, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, 9 months into the job, she was demanding a raise for Congress. And remember who came out and supported her initially was Congressman Steny Hoyer was supporting that. Yes, let's get them a raise. Well, luckily the citizens of the district came out and said, no, we can't have that. That's ridiculous. Why do you need a raise for? And he pulled back his statement. But no congressional candidate or no congressional member or members of Congress should ask for any more entitlements at all, especially with seeing how much they've been misappropriating and misutilizing taxpayer money. So that's one thing that needs to happen too. And another thing is term limits. I get the argument that, we as the people, we're the ones who elect our representatives to be there for us. And if we, the people, decide, hey, we like what they're doing, let's have them in there forever, so be it. I get that. There's no I had a great conversation with Congressman Thaddeus McCotter about this, and he brought a great point and said, where in the Constitution does it say that a member of Congress or a sitting member becomes like, when you set that, you're not saying, well, after, let's say if we say 12 years being a Congress member, well, what is it that it says that after you're 13, they're a threat to the country? It's like, that's a good debate. However, we all know this, is that we have a lot of members in Congress who've been there for a long, long time. Steny Hoyer's been there for almost 40 years. And I think with that, there's a little bit of complacency that kicks in. There's a little bit of lack of empathy, a lack of compassion, a lack of interaction with your constituents. And all of a sudden, you're not representing the people you're supposed to be representing. You're representing special interests, you're representing more of lobbyists or your big political, your PAC donors. So to curb that, I agree with term limits, and we need to have term limits. And if that's something that elected, I'm going to push for, and if I don't get it passed, I'm going to hold myself accountable to that too. But I think it's absolutely proper and reasonable to pass the torch on and give somebody else within the community time to get in and make a difference and make a change in Congress.
So we talked about the middle class. I want to steer towards that and stick with that topic for a second. Talk to me a little bit about healthcare and what you'll do in Congress if for some reason the ACA was ever, it's being challenged in the courts. It's been challenged in the courts. We voted on it. We've been there. We've done that. We've done this. So I saw on your website, that you are against the ACA. But let's say, you and Steny ever get to debate. He says, well, can't we just build on it, Chris? Can't we just find a replacement? What is your replacement? What would you support if the Democrats and Republicans got together tomorrow and you were in Congress tomorrow and said, okay, well, we can't kick 20 million people off this health insurance. So what is your plan, I guess, would be my question.
Yeah, great question, Jimmy. So with healthcare, and personally for me, I think one that I've applied multiple times because of changes with the mandates in the past, where I would get a letter from my health insurance that said, well, you can't have to plan anymore. You're going to have to select from these options. Every time the premiums went up and up and up, and it became to be a point to where a lot of people, including myself, said, you know what, I'm out. I'm going to just pay the tax for it. And the unfortunate thing with that, with how they set up the ACA, was that so many people said, you know what, I'm opting out of this. I'm more willing to pay the mandate tax, provide my own health insurance, and go through that. It kind of broke the system. And plus, as well, as we saw that it was so tightly regulated with what could be on plans, to where we lost competition within the marketplace. As I said, premium skyrocketed. And luckily the Supreme Court made a ruling recently with the Little Sisters of the Poor. That's a win for religious freedom, to say that the state cannot mandate something like that on them, which is great. But as for what we can do better, pre-existing conditions, they absolutely exist. Medicare and Medicaid, and they are great programs that you do there too. Now, as for trying to find ways to make them run more efficiently, I'm all for that. Right. But what are things that we can do right now? And so one of the things that, taking a look at health savings accounts. This is something I've been paying attention a lot recently too, of how we can limit the skyrocketing cost of healthcare and lack of coverage options. So one thing that we can do, I think, is replacing the employer-sponsored health insurance deduction with a refundable credit. Expand the power of the health savings accounts by increasing contribution limits and allowing tax-free deposits without a limit to any type of healthcare coverage on the individual carries. And that's one thing, doing some of the research that I've been doing with the employer-sponsored health insurance, is that right now the way it's structured, and the way that the incentives are in place, is that the federal government is losing a revenue of about $300 billion a year for that. So there's ways that we can adjust and fix that. I think we do need to continue to make improvements on healthcare and cost transparency. Um, I think a lot of the executive orders that President Trump has had, and also the Right to Try Act that Congress passed, I think those are great stepping points too, to make sure that we do have transparency, how much medication and healthcare is going to cost. Um, I do think we also need to reestablish federally funded guaranteed coverage pools for those with high cost, high conditions, or unexpected catastrophic accidents or illness, to ensure that we have access to that quality and affordable healthcare for everybody. And also make sure that we can improve life-saving medications for everybody too. We need to make sure that we have more affordability and access to that. And so again, ultimately, is trying to find ways to expand coverage, create a little more competition in the marketplace, let it be a little more driven by the policies from the doctors, from the people, to determine what coverages and needs that they need. Instead of, I think it's been overly regulated by elected bureaucrats.
So I'm going to push back, Chris. With the ACA, these are all great points that you're making, but here's the question. So how do you come down to the shore, right? It's not your district, it's Congressman Harris's district, but let's say you ever ran for Senate or something. And you say, come to Somerset County. And, I know plenty of Somerset County people that are on, I don't live there permanently. I don't live there at all, but I know plenty of people, and that's one of the poorest counties in Maryland, where they're struggling financially and on the ACA. Most of them are, because they can't afford their own insurance, or are they on Medicare or Medicaid or one of those programs. So let's say, you say, hey, you don't qualify for Medicaid and Medicare right now, but we know you're paying like maybe $150 right now a month for one of the ACA or the Maryland state programs in general. But we're gonna pull you from that plan. So what are you?
Jimmy, yes. Oh God, hold on. Give Jimmy a second to catch up.
We have a health expense. You can use hard. You have to be able to afford that. Does that make sense, Chris? Are you guys frozen? Can you guys hear me?
Hold on, Jimmy, you froze. We'll give him a second to get back on. But while he catches up, do you want to talk a little bit about, there's been an exponential increase with everything going on with the police and everything in gun sales. And I know, obviously, you're a supporter of the Second Amendment. Can you talk a little bit about, what your thoughts are there? Obviously, I know Kamala Harris is a big fan of mandatory buybacks and everything like that. So what's your take on the Second Amendment and everything going on?
Well, I think that the Second Amendment is there for a reason, to make sure we're able to protect ourselves. And again, with me being a law enforcement officer working on Capitol Hill, and you have a lot of these members of Congress who look like they want to retreat and pull those rights away from us. And the first thing I say about that is, well, a lot of them have details. And if they're willing to put themselves at the same position as the people that they're supposed to represent, and if they're saying we're going to pull some of your rights and liberties to owning a gun, owning a weapon, and having the ability to defend yourself, well, they need to take that away from themselves as well and put them at the same platform as everybody. But again, we have the right to protect ourselves, our loved ones, and anybody who may be at risk. Perfect example, we had the unfortunate situation down in Texas with the shooter coming into the church, and unfortunately 2 people lost their lives. But with the concealed carry laws that Governor Abbott had, the situation was neutralized within seconds. And that could have been an easy situation, like we've seen in other places, unfortunately, like in Orlando at the club shooting, and in many other places where, unfortunately, people have lost more lives because they didn't have the ability to protect themselves. But again, I think it needs to be there. Red flag laws, I think it should be more of a state decision, but I also do believe too that a lot of the red flag laws that are in place are are not taking into consideration due process at all, and that is a very, very slippery slope that we're seeing. And I even recall reading a few news articles too, in different places around the country that, you had individuals trying to take advantage of red flag laws by reporting somebody that they were a threat purely off of political differences. And it's scary. It's not a good situation. It's not a good slope for our country to go down. But you see what's going on right now too in Congress. They're looking at HR 5717 in the Senate. It's Senator Warren's bill, 3254, I believe. And within their bill, they're talking about criminalizing the sale of firearms to adults under 21 years old. Meanwhile, they're also trying to push to say, hey, let's have people 16 and older go to the booths, but you're not responsible enough to carry a weapon to protect yourself. Again, it doesn't make any sense to me. They're also looking at have a national permit to buy a gun, and it's a 10-year license. It establishes a national gun registry, institutes national red flag gun seizure laws, and I believe too it's also going to increase taxes on guns and ammo. I think it's gun being 30% and ammo being 50%, vice versa. I think it's gun being 30%, but again, it's ways that they're trying to circumvent, take away those rights slowly from everybody else. Meanwhile, you have people with power and people with money who are able to buy and protect people with guns to protect them and their families. Meanwhile, it's giving away for everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a huge issue, something that a lot of people have thoughts on. I personally think that, yes, do we need to vet people to make sure that they're mentally sane enough to carry a weapon? Absolutely. But do I think that people should be able to protect themselves? 100%. Jimmy has joined us again.
Sorry, saved by the Wi-Fi, Chris.
So we'll let him jump back to his question.
Yeah, Chris. Anyway, so yeah, I just want to push back on that a little bit, and just kind of talk to me a little bit about what specifics can you give and guarantee the people on the shore, especially some of the poorer counties on the shore? I mean, that they're not going to lose their insurance, even though they might not qualify for some other programs, and ACA has helped them. And I know Dwight, who's been IMing me, is not a big fan of ACA, as he's made clear. But I just want to push back on that a little bit and see what thoughts you have on what we could replace it with that would make it through. Because some of the details you've given, I don't think your Democratic counterparts won't go for, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, the plan I discussed, I read recently, Senator Rand Paul introduced something somewhat similar to the HS. He's a big push for the HSAs, and I know it does not have a very well liked, but how favorability when it comes to those on the other side of the aisle. But when it does come to saving costs and making healthcare much more affordable, I think it will. I think it'll alleviate a lot of the pressures on the market, and therefore we'd be able to have some of the additional funding that, like I said before, the lost revenue from the federal government because of the employer plan with HSAs as they currently stand, that can create a substantial amount of revenue back in the federal government that could be used to benefit those who really need the health insurance and help those with lower incomes. Another thing to kind of open up the market a little bit too, to help bring costs down low, and I know this is a trend that's starting around the country, is primary doctor subscription plans. I know there's a few doctors that started to be a trend where they're not, they're kind of taking themselves out of the bubble, and they're charging their patients about $75 a month, and they can see them whenever they want, some at home, or even kind of like we're doing through Zoom chat, but they can meet that way too. But it creates a marketplace, and it also enhances the doctor-patient relationship. And what that could also do as well is have that subscription-based plan. The good doctors, to excel at what they do, and allow doctors to be doctors. And then, I think what that could have is also make sure that those who actually need help, who may not have the coverages, that it should open up the emergency rooms a little bit more too. But the tricky thing with that, I'm still working on this, is how can we subsidize a program like that to still help everybody with low income? So that's the big thing. We don't want We don't want people to get kicked off of their plans at all. We want to make sure we have health care, but we need to make sure we also have health care that's very efficient, that it's not closing the market and creating limitations for patients and the people, but we're going to have more options for them. And with that competition, I think it's going to eventually have costs lower for everybody.
Okay, great. And I want to move on to legal immigration. So I was on your website, as you can tell, and I quote you by saying illegal immigration is a huge benefit. And most people do believe that, and as long as you come here the right way. I come from a family of immigrants. So tell me, Chris, you are in a pretty diverse district. You have 37.8% Black, and then 5.7 Latinos. And as a Latino myself, what programs are you willing to support in order to, put, Latinos to work in your district, that, are here, but, working on getting their green card or working to get sponsored? Because as we both know, immigration has been a very difficult topic for both Democrats and Republicans. But what's struggling the worst is that it's such a backup of immigration. Some people are saying, well, let's just close the borders. It'll just be easier that way. And then, not let anybody in until we can clean this mess up. Would you support something like that?
Yeah. And I've heard, other comments in years past where people say, we got to deport everybody. We can't do that.
Mm-hmm. No, we can't.
We can't. And that's very unreasonable. But, I think, the fact that we have so many people that want to come to this country, it's very admirable. It shows that the American dream is still alive, and people are coming here for prosperity. Not many people are leaving, although we have people every 4 years who leave the country. But we have people that want to come to this country for opportunity for themselves and their family. And we need to make sure that those who are coming here for the right intent, that we can foster a system to get them in and have them become citizens. I talked to many people within my district. I spoke to a lady a couple weeks ago that actually I know very well. I know her. I coached her son with hockey, and she's been in the country for about 20 years, going through the process trying to become a citizen. And it took her, like I said, nearly 20 years to become a citizen of the country. She's been here the whole time, being a great American citizen, working and supporting her family. So we need to find a way to expedite the process for those who want to be here, be a citizen, to get them in and have them become a citizen. Because, like I said, a lot of stories I've heard from people who've been through the process or are currently still in the process, it is way too long. And just as you said, Jimmy, it is backlog right now because of how many people are here. We have a lot of people here too, who have come legally too. We have a lot of people that are here through the DACA program, which I feel horrible for them with their situation that they're in, because when President Obama set that up, even President Obama said himself that it did not create a path for citizenship for them. And then President Trump goes out and creates the executive order for that. Supreme Court shot it down. So now they're in limbo. You have everybody who's on this program that they're in limbo. And meanwhile, who is not on Capitol Hill working on fixed immigration, but that's been a hot topic for how many years now? But again, that's one thing that's something that can easily be in session right now. Fixing everything with the coronavirus situation, helping out small business, but also working on these programs too. Or not, they continue to kick the can down the road. They bring it up when it comes to election years, and nothing's being done about it. And that's one thing. I want to hear a lot more. I want to hear more stories. I want to hear different ways and find solutions to these issues and work. So, like I said, there's a lot more that I know I can work on learning about the program and what we can do to expedite the process to get people to become citizens who want to be citizens. But yeah, sorry.
No,
out there.
Great. No, you did great. Jackie, you got anything?
Well, so we are
I have
coming in.
questions for days, so what?
I know. Well, we're coming into the last 5 minutes, so I do like to ask, because at the end of the day, we're all humans. We're not just politicians. So I'd like to ask some, like a fun question, and so that people can get a gauge a little bit more of your personality, and then we'll do a wrap up. You can tell people where to find you, all that fun stuff. So my fun question of the day is, and it's a classic one: if you could have dinner with anybody, alive or dead, who would it be and why?
Oh, wow.
Ha!
Could be the hardest question of the night.
That is really tough.
Steny Hoyer, right? You want dinner with him?
But you know what? With my personality, and I'll be honest with you, like my personality, like I enjoy conversations with and like I'll talk to anybody. It's just I'm a people person. I enjoy conversations, even with individuals who have completely different viewpoints and views than I do. I'm actually more intrigued because like I want to learn from them. I want to learn what perspectives they've had in life that got them to believe what they did. It's going to make me a little more whole as a person to better understand that, and maybe they'll learn something from me. And I think it's that discussion, while not sacrificing my values, but we can have these conversations, and that's how we find solutions. So hey, if we have a bunch of same horrors, that'd be great. That's not my person though. Wow. That is really, really interesting because there's a lot of people at the top of my head that I can think of right off the bat. Thomas Sowell's a great one. Lincoln would be a great one to listen to. Oh wow. I'll go with Abe Lincoln for now, but yeah, that's a tough one. I have to really think about that to give you guys a real definitive answer on that. I'll get back to you.
Yeah. I like to believe that the people who have left us on the earth can still kind of see what's going on. So I think it'd be really interesting to get Abraham Lincoln's take on everything going on right now with Black Lives Matter and everything like that.
And Dr. Martin Luther King too. Yeah. And I'd be interested to hear Malcolm X's views on what's going on too. That'd be a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Jimmy, do you have a personality-based question you want to ask before we wrap up?
No, more of a comment. Chris, I think you are what is right with politics. I appreciate that you are willing to hear from different people's points of views and talk to different people that might not agree with you. Not saying I'm one of them, but what you said about Steny, I think is, even though he's been in there too long, but just saying you'd like to have a conversation with him, or anybody that has different views, is what's right with politics. Unfortunately, we're in a period of people don't view that as what's right with politics right now. I mean, me and Dwight on our other show love to argue back and forth. We're what's wrong with politics, or what he might be what's wrong with politics. But but Chris, you are what's right with politics, and I wish there were more candidates like you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that's one thing, if you don't mind real quick, is that's one thing that my campaign has been driving for, is because we know we're in a D+15 district. It's heavily Democrat, and that's okay. Like I said, it's me being willing to listen and hear people. We may have arguments. That's okay. It's being civil. It's being open to diversity of thought. And that's what makes our country so great. And that's what scares me right now. As you said, Jimmy, like we're in a climate right now where we have factions within our society that are in this cancer culture environment that anybody that disagrees with them, they want to shut them down and immediately move into the process. And that is scary. And like I said, I'm a big person for liberty and freedom, and I like that for everybody.
That's very well said. Well, so to that end, if people want to contribute to your campaign or help you out, how can they find you? Where can they find you?
They can go to my website. It's chrispalombi.com. Here's how you spell my last name, common spelling, Palombi. So feel free to go to my website. Like I said, I run the website. I built it. Every message that goes through, it goes directly to the guy right here. So feel free, leave a message. I'm more than happy to respond and have conversations. Any help you all can support, share content, social media, I'm more than happy. And yeah, thank you. It's great talking to you all. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. When your time in Congress is over, we'll tap you. We can always use a couple more tech people. I think we're burning out Ryan Nidak. But Chris, thank you again for joining us as our guest tonight. Thank you to my co-guest host, Jimmy J. This has been Direct Line. We will see you next Wednesday night. Thanks, everybody.
See you later.
Thank you.